We're here today to talk about a long sought after sequel to a horror comedy film. Well, the first one was a little bit comedy, but this one goes huge on the comedy, which we'll get into that in just a minute. But the film we are talking about is this Vestron collection number 34, Ghoulies Go to College. So this is the film, and trust me, I have seen people online talking about this for years. Like, for people, especially collectors of the Vestron collection, they're like, this is the one that they've wanted. It's here now. I'm going to tell you how to get it. I'm going to talk about this film. This is the first time I've ever seen it. I'm going to go over that some. I'm going to talk about my impressions of it. We're going to talk about the transfer a little bit. It is only a Blu-ray. It's not 4K, but we're going to talk about it some, and we're going to take a look at this packaging on this thing. If you would do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. All right, I think I've kept you in suspense long enough. I'm going to go ahead and tell you where you can get Ghoulies Go to College and also the other new Vestron Collection editions. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to find this on the shelf at Walmart. You're not going to find it on Amazon right now. The only place you can get it is if you go directly to the Lionsgate online store. If you go there directly, you can purchase Ghoulies Go to College and the two previous Vestron collections like May and All of Me. Unfortunately, that's the only way you can get them right now, and you do have to pay shipping on top of like about $25 price. But there was something really cool on their site. I'm going to show you. Check this out. There's a Frailty slip box. Now this is amazing. I can't wait to dive into it. My attention was first drawn to the Vestron collection back in the day. I saw some of them on the shelf at Walmart, and they were reasonably priced. Now, I believe it, if I'm not mistaken on this, I think it was between $10 and $15, maybe less. And it caught my eye. I really like the new cover art that they do for some of these. Before, like the older ones, they used the like original cover art and stuff like that, but some of these newer ones, they do new cover art. Especially, I'm fond of this Ghoulies one, but a lot of them look pretty cool, and so I started collecting them, and they were reasonably priced. Some of them were harder to get. They were kind of like, I guess, closer to being out of print. And some of them I had to pay like $30 something for, or something like that. But I ended up getting all of them, and I got all of them up to date so far. So if you are a Vestron collector like I am, you unfortunately have to go to that site and pay this a little bit higher price than they should be, especially since they're not 4K. They're right now they're talking about maybe dipping into some 4K. Hopefully they don't double dip. They might have to, unfortunately. But like right now they're still doing just Blu-ray versions, and we're going to talk about that transfer here in just a bit, which I think is still pretty good, even though it is only Blu-ray. Ghoulies 3 from 1990 is the third of 4 Ghoulies films. The first Ghoulies film was kind of like a ripoff of, this happened a lot. Gremlins came out and it did really good, and suddenly you had Munchies, and you had Critters, and then you had Ghoulies. And there might be some others I might be missing. Let me know if there's some others, but there are these little creature films. And they all have their ups and downs. I like most of them. I've always kind of been a fan of them. I think Critters I've probably seen more than any of the other ones. But Ghoulies, the first one, I saw it again recently, and it wasn't as good as I remembered it. It is kind of a slow moving. There's a lot of ceremonies that happen in there, and a lot of like them trying to bring the Ghoulies to life or whatever they're doing. But it does have a really cool, like, probably later half of the film where the shit really hits the fan. I remember that from when I was younger. Some of those scenes are pretty scary, really, but it does have a lot of filler in it. And the second one is the Ghoulies end up going to the kind of a carnival, and that one's fun, but it doesn't go as crazy as Ghoulies Go to College. But that one the pacing is a little off. On the other, this one, Ghoulies Go to College, the pacing is, this thing is, it is a lot of fun, but it is very ridiculous. It is very over the top. It is very silly, and it is, some of the writing is juvenile, but it actually works within the context of the film, and it's funny in that way. Even if it's like, they're saying like, these kids are college kids, but to me, they almost are acting like high schoolers in a way, but one of the writers who has an interview on here, he says that they hired him to do most of the dialogue in there, And when they did, he was pretty close to being in college. He's only a few years away from it, so he was really able to tap into that energy. And that's one thing that this one has. It has a lot of energy. The Ghoulies, there's 3 of them. There's more of them in the other 2 films. There's 3 of them in this one. There's the Bat Ghoulie, the Cat Ghoulie, and the Rat Ghoulie. There's no bat. It's a Fish Ghoulie, the Cat Ghoulie, and the Rat Ghoulie. The Bat one's pretty cool, but he's in the other ones, the first 2, but he's not in this one. But they have 3 Ghoulies in this one, and they really work well off each other. They have a lot of screen time, and they talk a lot, and they kind of act like the 3 Stooges, and they're quite funny. It may not be hilarious, and it might be a little corny, but I think it works really well in the film. Now, if you've ever seen the cover to the original Ghoulies, they had a Ghoulie, the Fish Ghoulie, coming out of the toilet, and it kind of made you think, looking at that the whole thing is just going to be like a silly kind of comedy thing, but it's mostly fairly serious. There's a few comedic bits in that one, but it's not like what you think from seeing that cover. Now, this one, it takes that toilet humor to the extreme. In fact, one girl gets killed with a toilet plunger. They shove it into her face, and then they pull it back, and her whole face like stretches out. That's a crazy shot, but it's a lot of fun. Now, the Kevin McCarthy, now you probably know this guy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original one. Now, I did a review of this Kino Lorber Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You can check that out on my channel. But Kevin McCarthy gets top billing in the opening credits. In the ending credits, he's a second build, but he plays the main antagonist other than the Ghoulies. He plays Professor Ragnar, who's really upset about this prank week. And the kids pulling pranks to the extent of, they're kind of a little bit reckless with this, especially when you get a teacher all like up in your grill about it, and they're actually pulling pranks on him in class, and he doesn't have much of a sense of humor, and he gets that comic book that brings the Ghoulies to life, and he starts trying to control the Ghoulies himself. So that's how mad he is at these kids pulling these pranks. So that's kind of the humor that's going on in this movie, and it works, and it's really, some of the humor's crude and raunchy, but it works for the most part. Now, I think the whole cast here, I don't recognize a lot of them, but they all seem to be having a good time, and they all do a good job. They're all very, very likable or over the top in the roles that they play. Evan McKenzie plays the protagonist, Skip Carter. I don't think I've seen him in anything else, but he does a really good job here as the protagonist. He's one of the pranksters. They got a house, a frat house, where they all pull pranks on each other, and they're kind of competing to see who's going to win this crown. It's like this really ridiculous crown. Whoever wins gets that crown, and the other house right now has the crown, and they're trying to get it back. But his girlfriend, played by Eva LaRue, doesn't like any of this, and she's actually broken up with him, and he's trying to get her back, but she just says he needs to focus on other things than pulling pranks. And it's probably a good suggestion not to do that, because they're about to flunk out of school because they're getting so ridiculous with all the partying and all the prank pulling. But really, the whole cast here, I think, is likable, and they just seem to be having a lot of fun. And what's impressive about these Vestron releases, especially the one I haven't necessarily dove into deep on all of them, but this one has 3 pretty good interviews. It has a recent interview with the lead actor Evan McKenzie, talking about his experience on the film, and it's quite an amusing and informative interview. And also, there's 2 other interviews. There's one with one of the screenwriters who didn't get credit, but he said he wrote about 90% of the dialogue. They brought him on later on to kind of like doctor the script and make it a little more fun. He added that kind of crude, like, jokey dialogue, which I think adds a lot to this film. He said before that it wasn't quite there. maybe I don't know, maybe it was more serious at the time, the dialogue there, but it wasn't authentic college sounding dialogue where he kind of amped it up, and he talks about his experience on the film, and that's a great interview. And also, there's an interview with one of the special effects guys who he was only on set a few times, but he had worked on Ghoulies 1 and 2, and it's very informative about how the puppets work. Now, these puppets look terrific, by the way. They got like the animatronic kind of faces, where they were able to use remote controls to make them make expressions or cables, and they're on screen a lot, and that's a good thing about this one specifically, is you get to see a lot of ghoulies, and they look really good in this one, I think. In all three interviews, they talk about the director of this film, John Carl Buechler. Now, John Carl Buechler was mostly a special effects artist. If you look at his resume, he did a lot of films that you've probably seen, especially if you like Ghoulies 3. But he directed Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. And all of them had a lot of good things to say about him. Unfortunately, the director passed away from cancer in 2019. And especially the last interview, the guy who was on the special effects team, he has some fairly effective things to say about the director. Now, all three of them talk about his director style and his energy that he brought to the set, this manic energy that was just like this, and you can feel that when you're watching this film. You can feel that almost at any frame of the movie, that it's just like that energy is there, and there's excitement, and whatever you see on screen is done from that director, John Carl Buechler, with love for what he's shooting. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of this. So it's got the same cover on the inside. There is a reversible on the back side of this. This is what the back of that looks like. And the disc also has it printed, the same cover. It comes with a digital code. It's a Blu-ray only. There's a few pictures here. One of these, like this frying pan thing, is here. There's like a frying pan. This one guy gets hit in the face with a frying pan. Apparently that shot was deleted from the film. I guess it didn't quite work, but that was what it was supposed to look like. And this is the original cover for the film. I do really like this new artist's drawing. Now, as far as the transfer here, this is only a Blu-ray release. The movie was shot on film, and it looks fairly pleasing. It looks fairly organic when you're watching it. I think that I think if it was in 4K, you would see some more detail. You do kind of see the limitations of some of the shots as you're watching it. But I think in general that you do see. I mean, it does look pretty good for Blu-ray. Now, it wasn't, when I was watching it, I was watching it, I wasn't thinking about the transfer as much. I was really thinking about the movie and how ridiculous it was, and also how fun it was as well. But these puppets, they look pretty good in Blu-ray. In 4K, maybe some of the details may not look as strong there, but I think in general, even like the black levels, they look fairly convincing. I didn't see a lot of noise in those areas. I thought it looked fairly clean. Now, like I said before, if it was bumped up to 4K, you would see more detail. It probably would have an HDR grading, and then the flesh tones would look better. Now, the flesh tones they look solid here when you're watching it. They look fairly natural. I think the HDR would bring out more of that, and maybe be more saturated. More than likely, you would definitely see some of the black levels looking darker in general. But like I said, while you're watching this film, I think it flows pretty good as far as you not thinking about the transfers or anything to that nature. I think the lighting here and the film work is very impressive for what it is. I think that they definitely knew what they were doing, and everything comes out looking rather pleasing. Now, there's not a lot of gore in this film. There's not like a lot of blood. There's some really goofy kills in the movie that are pretty awesome, but it doesn't get too bloody. There is some nudity in this. Some of it's fairly jarring and unexpected, but there's a pretty amazing like amount of nudity. There's like a panty raid scene where all the they trick the guys. They're supposed to come steal their panties, and they all come out topless. Some of them completely nude. But there's some pretty impressive looking nudity in general in this one that may be unexpected. Since some of it's a little tame. If it wasn't for some of the nudity, it might have even gotten like a PG-13 or PG rating. Probably PG-13. Let's go ahead and rate the movie. I'm going to rate the movie and Vestron's collector edition here. I'm going to rate them on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. I'm going to give the movie 3.5 stars. It is this thing is very raw film. It is probably too goofy for most people's taste, but I do appreciate it, and I think that it does have some similarities to another couple of films I want to point out, like Night of the Creeps. And also the one I had out here earlier, what did it go? Chud 2. Now, both of these have a similar theme. Now, this Ghoulies Go to College is a lot more goofy than Night of the Creeps, but it's similar in goofiness to Chud 2. But unlike Chud 2, it does have that nudity in it, which You may not like it. I thought it was pretty good. As far as what Vestron has done here, I'm going to give. This is tough. I'm going to give them 3.5 just because it's only Blu-ray. I really think that they need to step it up and get into the 4K. But as far as I really like this this artwork on the cover here, which I'm going to give that like 4.5 stars. I really dig that. I think they really brought out the flavor of the film on that. But let me know what you think about this film. And if you haven't done so already, if you would subscribe to my channel. Now, you see this box here. I'm going to put, let's do Night of the Creeps. Now, if you click on that link, I'm going to, you'll see my review of Night of the Creeps from Scream Factory. And if you would also like this video, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Thanks for watching.